All right, we are now recording, so you can start whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the June meeting of the Union Township Planning Commission. We're again here online. We'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't think we have perfect synchronicity yet, but that wasn't too bad. Let's see. So we last met, roll call. So we'll have roll call first.
Clerk Cody.
Here.
Squatrito.
Here.
Webster.
Here.
Fuller. Alex is muted.
Yep.
Darren.
here.
Shingles.
Here.
Buckley.
Here.
Faring.
Here.
And LaBelle.
Here.
Everyone's present.
Very good. And township staff, Nanny, Gallané, and Lovebury are also with us. We met last week. We met on June 8th, and there are minutes. They're shown there on your screen to that meeting. Are there any corrections to the June 8th minutes?
On others present, should the township attorney be listed on that?
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Can we add, oh gosh, what was his name?
Eric.
Morris?
Yep.
He'll be in the video walking around here.
I thought you turned it.
So we'll note the presence of the township attorney under others present. Any other additions to the June 8th minutes?
Move to approve.
Support by LaBelle.
So there was a motion by Webster with a second by LaBelle to approve the minutes with the one minor amendment of modifying the others present. Any further discussion on that? If not, then I'll ask you to go ahead and just, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so I'll declare those minutes approved as amended. Next item is correspondence, board reports, and presentations. Any correspondence other than anything, anything not dealing with our agenda tonight? Hearing none, I'll assume there isn't. Board reports, Lisa, anything else? Anything from the Board of Trustees? I don't know if there was a meeting since last week.
There was a meeting last Wednesday. The board approved the special use permit for the group daycare home located at 4175 East Ring Road with the additional conditions that we suggested.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Lisa from us to the board? Okay. Ryan, anything from ZBA that we need to be aware of?
Nothing to report this time around. Our last meeting was canceled due to lack of agenda items. And in fact, I think we just got word that the next meeting has been canceled as well due to lack of agenda items.
Okay. I believe Denise told us that the Sidewalks and Pathways group is meeting the end of this month. Is that
That is-
correct?
That is correct.
Anything else you want to say on that?
Nope.
Okay. Any questions for Denise, Sidewalks and Pathways? Okay. Any presentations? I'm not aware of any. Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on. So the next item is approval of the agenda. So our agenda has 2 new business items and 1 other business item, which we're all familiar with. Any other items that need to be on tonight's agenda that anyone is aware of? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. So moved.
Motion is by Webster to approve the agenda as prepared. Is there a second?
Support. Buckley.
Second is by Buckley. Further discussion? Once again, I'll just ask for ayes and nays. All in favor of approving the agenda as prepared, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, our agenda is approved. The next item is public comment. So at every meeting, we have a portion of the meeting towards the beginning that's set aside for individuals who want to speak on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Items on the agenda, for example, public hearings, will get their own allotted time, but this is for items not on the agenda. And if there's anyone, I will look at the attendees. If there's anyone who wants to speak on an item that's not on the agenda, we'd ask you to use the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen there, and I will recognize people to speak. If there's anyone who wants to make a public comment, we just ask you to give us your name and address for the minutes and limit your comments to 3 minutes. So public comment is open at 7:07. And seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that back up. There'll be public comment again later in the meeting. So we'll move on to our business items. Our first new business item is an application for a home occupation permit, 20-02, explosive cake confections, cake studio, home occupation. I will turn it over to Rodney and/or Peter for an introduction, and then we'll move on to the public hearing.
I'm going to go ahead and promote Eric White. He is the applicant for this. Promote him as a panelist so you'll be able to see him when he speaks. So tonight, what you have in front of you, you should have a copy of our home occupation permit report dated the 4th of June. As was said, this is for specialty cake production home occupation with the wonderful name. And this is proposed on a property to 188 South Bamber Road. It is a property currently under ownership by the Bennett family. Eric and Daniel White are the applicants, and they are looking to purchase the property. And they wanted to know that they could have this activity on their property, and that's how we came to where we in the paperwork you'll see the permission from Mr. and Mrs. Bennett for the application. Just a few comments. Just highlight a few items in the review. I would note the dwelling does comply with all the ordinance requirements, and the home occupation does also meet the requirements that apply related to the amount of floor area that's allowed. There's no mechanical equipment that would create a nuisance. They've provided the hours of operation at 8 to 6 p.m. The cakes will be direct sales with um, with the process starting out in the kitchen of the home, and then moving by the end of January of next year into the accessory building on the property. Overall, we found, as I said, that the proposed home occupation is consistent with the home occupation ordinance requirements that apply to it. We did note that while the cake business is operating in the home, that a Michigan state law called the cottage food law would apply. This is a law that was adopted some time ago to actually allow exactly this sort of activity, allow a small business to be able to food business to easily start in the home and to be able to sell a certain amount of product. One of the primary limiting factors is the amount of sales that are allowed and where those sales are allowed. So while it's in the home, it would be under the cottage food law. After it moves to the accessory structure, then it would be governed by the health codes and the rules that apply for that activity area. So with that in mind, we've included a recommendation. If the Planning Commission is in agreement, we have no objection to an approval action subject to 2 conditions, and those conditions are essentially housekeeping items, noting the compliance with the state law and also providing any outside agency permits and approval to the zoning administrator as they come up. And so with that in mind, I'm happy to answer any questions as we look at this project more along the way.
Okay. Anyone have any immediate questions for Rodney? I assume we'll do the public hearing first, and then we'll move on to our deliberations and plenty of opportunity for questions at that point.
Hey, Rodney, I do have a question in regards to the outside agency permits and so forth. Is that, since the building is already there, there must be some work being done in there. Does that include any mechanical permits that have been, created, or plumbing and so forth, that those permits would also have to be approved?
Those will come up when they're going to be moving into the accessory building. They are starting out in the house, then they will be doing the build out for the accessory building. So right now there is nothing, no build out. But,
right.
Building
I
permits
understand that, but if we put that condition in regards to outside agency, does those permits in regards to the approval of mechanical and so forth, does that include, when you say outside agency permits, are those included within that?
Yes, they would.
Okay, that's my question. Okay, thank you.
All right. And of course, the public hearing was appropriately noticed in the paper, and the residents within the 300 feet were notified and all that, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So with that, we'll move to the public hearing. We want to give everyone who wants to speak on this application an opportunity to do so. So I'll ask people to, again, indicate their desire to speak by clicking the raise hand button. If I see any of those, I'll recognize those people, and we will give you an opportunity to speak. We ask you to give us your name and address for the minutes, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Once everyone who wants to speak has had an opportunity to speak, we'll consider recognizing people for additional comments if that's warranted. Also, the applicant will have their own opportunity to speak, so the applicant doesn't need to speak during the public comment or public hearing, I should say. So with that, the public hearing on home occupation permit application 20-02 is open at 7:14. And I'm not seeing any indication that anyone wants to speak on this topic. Were there any correspondence, any written comments received on this?
No, there were not.
Okay. Then, as usual, I will say if anyone shows up in the next few minutes and wants to speak on this, we'll give them the opportunity to speak, but seeing that there are no individuals currently in the meeting that are indicating a desire to speak, I'm going to indicate that the records show that no public comments were offered, and that the public hearing, I should say, is closed at 7:15. And so the next item on here is updates from staff and the applicant. Rodney's kind of already updated us, I think. But if the applicant, Mr. White, if there's anything you'd like to say to us, we're happy to hear your comments as well. And also, you may have questions from commissioners.
I think we're pretty well square on what we need to do and what's expected and whatnot. We're just eager to get into the house and get things underway, and then we'll start working with contractors immediately to get plumbing, electrical, gas established first, and as obvious, that'll all be permitted.
Okay. Are there any questions from planning commissioners for the applicant? May be helpful for you guys as well to use the raise hand button just for in terms of me keeping track of who wants to speak. Well, while I'm waiting for that, I have one question. In your, Rodney, in your report to us, or Peter, I guess, in your report to us, under the key findings, it talks about, you're talking about the Michigan cottage food law, which I understand the issue there. The last sentence says, these products cannot be sold to retail stores, restaurants over the internet by mail order or to wholesalers, brokers, or other food distributors who resell foods. But earlier, somewhere in here, it talks about taking orders online. So I guess I'm wondering if there's any conflict there. So that's really a question for Peter and or Rodney.
I would say this, that as far as from our perspective as a township, we don't enforce the Michigan cottage food law. We are requiring them to follow it, but it's really, even there, it's simply a note, essentially a note that because they are required to follow it while they're operating the business out of their kitchen. It will be up to the applicant to maintain their business in accordance with the law that applies. I don't recall the details right offhand in terms of where that line gets drawn related to how far you can go on the internet, how far you can't. I don't even necessarily want to speculate, but I don't think it prohibits them, for example, from having a website and having contact information, and even potentially having a menu of choices that are listed there. So that, with that in mind, ultimately the enforcement will be up to the state of Michigan and compliance by the applicant.
Okay, all right. It just jumped out at me because I saw over the internet, and it just looked like it was,
I would just like to add that I think the key in that last sentence is it refers to the products to then be resold. So you're not allowed to sell to retail stores, restaurants over the internet by mail order to wholesalers, brokers, or other food distributors who resell foods. And so the applicant has indicated that these are going to be special orders for events. And so, although we can't monitor it, the intent of this operation is to not sell to then be resold at another site.
Okay. All right, I understand. Other questions from planning commissioners? I'll point out that on page 21 of your packet, you have the different motions. So that because there are conditions, if the motion were to approve, it would be the motion to approve with conditions. So
I do have a question. In
Yes.
regards to the conditions, Rodney or Peter, should we also have in regards to the conditions, hours of operation and about the parking, or is that understood that that's just part of the ordinance, and so therefore we don't have to say that as part of the conditions?
It's actually part of their application. So when you approve their application, you're approving the hours of operation and the parking plan that they presented to you as part of
Okay.
it.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Doug?
No, that was a good question by Commissioner Webster.
Okay.
So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve with conditions. HOP 20-02 home occupation permit application from Eric and Danielle White for the Explosive Confection Cake Studio at 188 South Bamber Road, parcel number 1400410000102 in the Ag District. Find that it can comply with applicable zoning ordinance requirements, including section 8.19 home occupations, subject to the following conditions. Michigan cottage food law requirements shall be adhered to until such time as the operation is conducted in an accessory building equipped with full commercial kitchen. The applicant shall submit copies of all required township and outside agency permits to the zoning administrator prior to relocation of the operation to the accessory building.
Support.
So the motion was by LaBelle and the second was by Webster.
Yes.
You heard the motion. Further discussion? If not, then make sure you're unmuted, and I will ask Jennifer to call the roll.
Fuller,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Petrito,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
LaBelle,
Yes.
Faring,
Yes.
and Shingles.
Yes.
Webster.
Yes.
9-0.
So that motion carried. So your home occupation permit is approved, and we thank Mr. and Mrs. White for joining us, and good luck.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you for your help, Peter.
Thank you.
Forward to trying one of those cakes.
Stop by. Call first.
We're going to send right back to
Back to attending.
Billy. It's not allowing me to take them back. That's interesting.
They're stuck.
Yeah, you're stuck. You don't need to stay for the rest of the meeting. I can't send you back to attendee. I'm not sure why, but it won't let me. But you don't need to stay for the meeting. You can just hit end meeting down the corner of your screen.
Okay. So with that, we'll move on to our second business item. This is a site plan review 20-02 for Hacks LLC. We looked at a preliminary on this last year, and so they're back with the final site plan. And once again, either Rodney or Peter can introduce this and give us any updates that you have, and then we'll hear from Mr. Beebe.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and promote Mr. Beebe to panelist so that he's coming in. Wait just for a moment for him to do that. So what you have before you is the updated site plan for the 4 Hacks development. It is, as was mentioned, it's one you saw last year, I believe in August, if I recall. It's 4 duplex condominium buildings, and then some additional detached garage units. The significant change from the previous version of this site plan is it now shows as a private road through the project, rather than before there was a kind of a web of driveways that served all the individual units. The action that's before you tonight is consideration of approval of the site plan. I just highlight a couple of items. As was noted, the updated plan does have a private road. We did find that the private road meets the township ordinance requirements that apply. It's a 22-foot wide asphalt pavement with additional gravel shoulders. It does have a T turnaround. You look on the plan, you'll see a little area that's kind of bubbled in, where the driveways have been set up to, extensions of driveways have been set up to serve also as a T turnaround, which does satisfy the township's private road ordinance requirements. The applicant has requested temporary relief from the requirement sidewalk construction, and has noted the reason for that on the plan, that essentially there are no sidewalks in the area. This relief is basically per our township established policy for sidewalk construction. If the relief is granted, they would have to walk at a future date when the township basically requires that of them, and they are aware of that. We would note that there are some outside agency approvals that are outstanding that have not, some of that is due to the relative change to put in the private road element. So there were some outside agencies that reviewed the plan in the previous version and are in the process of reviewing this new version. It is not expected that any of these outside agencies will require any additional changes to the plan. The actual change to a private road reduced the amount of impervious surface. So the agencies that are involved, whether that's the state of Michigan or county agencies, even though their approvals are still outstanding, we don't expect that they will affect the site design in any way. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and Mr. Beebe is on as well.
Let me just ask real quickly, the actual site plan, the larger pages that we have that were mailed out to us, that's showing that's the final version that's showing with the private road.
There's actually in your packet, there's the Eagle permit for the version, the earlier version. And so you'll see as attached to the Eagle permit, that's the state of Michigan, the Department of, you'll see the older version there, but then at the back of the packet, basically, that's where you see the plans that show the private road. And yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can bring up a version of it here in a moment.
Well, that's okay. So let's see. All right. I guess what I'd like to do is give Tim an opportunity to speak if there's anything you'd like to say, and then we'll just have questions and proceed through this.
Well, like was said earlier, this is something that has come before you previously. The major change was consolidating the two driveways into a 22-foot asphalt with 4-foot gravel shoulders. And Rodney was correct, that actually reduced the amount of fill. This site is technically within a floodplain. Eagle, during the process, acknowledged the fact that this is probably not a floodplain, but the effort that would be involved in taking it through FEMA to get it out of the floodplain wasn't worth it, and I should just apply for the permit and balance the cut fills. we balanced the cut and fill material that was going in there and actually reduced the amount of dirt that's below the 100-year floodplain, which serves as then our detention. And we do have the first review and the second review from Bruce Rohr for the stormwater. We have the first and second review from Pat Gaffney. We have the first and second review from the fire department. I'm not sure if Tim Collins sent a new one from ICTC, but the roadway is larger. I can't imagine that he's going to have an issue getting the buses in. If you could do it on the driveways, you can definitely do it on the private road. I'm not sure that we've seen anything from Kim Smith yet, but we will obviously work with the DPW director to get our plan and profile drawings completed. And that's, by doing that, I'm getting her approval. These are both public extensions that need to be put in. I have to go through her review, and she actually signs off on the permit before it goes to Eagle. Other than that, I don't believe there's anything else. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but other than the roadway changing, this project really hasn't changed any.
Mhm. Yeah, it looks like what I remember. I guess I'll start, and then again, folks who want to speak, just hit the raise hand button. I guess I'm not seeing the T turnaround on this.
On sheet 3, do you see the clouded area?
Wrong sheet up. Let me see if I can fix that problem.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I finally see the clouded
While I'm
area.
sharing.
Oh, that portion of it. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I guess it is kind of a T. It's like one of the driveways in the road.
What we did on the easterly side was widen out that concrete driveway so that it had sufficient width to count for the other side of the T. We could have done that, or we could have widened the driveway that's going to the last 2 units. Either one would have sufficed, but this one fits the situation a little better.
Okay, I got you. All right. And then the other, I see Denise's hand up, but
That's okay, that's okay.
Yeah. The other thing, so that was my big concern with this was the floodplain. You're obviously, you've been working with this parcel for a while. Is it fair to say that this parcel is not prone to flooding?
Well, the flooding that we had just recently, which really wasn't that big of a storm. It was more the impacts that it had upstream on the dams and the problems with the dams. But a couple of years ago, when we had the flooding in the streets and Gaylord Street had 1.5 feet of water, I was out on this site and there was no water on this site.
Okay.
And that's, Joy Brooks is the floodplain engineer for our district. And she agreed with me. She said, this is probably not a floodplain, but the steps that you have to take to go through the federal government in order to get it released, she said, it's not worth it. Get your permit through me and keep moving. The things that we had to do, I had to do a cut fill balance. So anything that I was bringing in, I had below the 100-year floodplain, I had to count for by cutting areas out, which worked to my advantage anyway, because I had to create drainage patterns across the site in order to get the storm water to go to the county drain that's out there. So we balanced the site. We had about 3,000 cubic yards of extra. So you take 3,000 times 27, gets you your cubic feet, and that's gets us our storage. But the site is not prone to flooding, and the site is also all sand, remarkably. It drops off into wetland areas. We had the wetland boundary delineated. It's shown on the plans. All of our construction activity will be outside the wetland area, but inside the floodplain. And we're putting flood vents in the crawl spaces, and that's part of the DEQ permit.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that. I was looking at that DEQ permit quite carefully, and you know, the 100-year flood level is like 1 foot below the living area, and you know, if it were an area that were prone to flooding, I don't know that one would really want to, you know, maybe take that risk necessarily. But I'm happy to hear that it doesn't seem to be one.
Every time that we've had a big rain, we've gone out there to take a look. The owner, Jim Stark, has been doing it before I did. And he said, you know, I've never even seen the wetland areas with standing water. Down by the drain, which is towards the north side of the site, that drain will back up and overflow its banks, but it doesn't come anywhere near the development area.
Okay, good to hear. Denise?
I just have, well, I have a couple of comments. Tim, in regards to your site plan, I see that I'm assuming that dotted area on River Road is an indication of the sidewalk on River Road, which is what you're requesting the relief on.
That's
But
correct.
you also mentioned an internal sidewalks. Are they noted on the plan? The internal sidewalks, are they going to be on both sides of the road or just one?
The internal sidewalks, when we're looking at the project as a whole, the project boundary is actually the entire piece of property. So along the frontage would be River Road.
Right. But internal, you mentioned that there's going to be internal sidewalks. Where is that on the site plan?
It is not. The internal on this was the sidewalks along the roadway. We have a total of 8 families in here, Denise, and we're going to have a county road. This is a dead end street. There was no intention.
So you're asking for the relief not only along River Road, but also in the internal, because I'm just looking at, the plan shows both internal sidewalks. I'm looking at page 27 and along River Road. Where does the plan show internal sidewalks? So you're not just asking for relief along River Road, you're asking for relief for the entire project.
That is correct. That is correct. Page 27.
Okay. That's number 3 under review comments, number 3.
Yeah.
Sidewalks. I don't see the plan showing internal sidewalks.
No, it does not.
Okay, and then my understanding, it was just a relief. You're just asking for relief of sidewalks along River Road, but that's not, you're asking more than that.
I'm asking for relief on sidewalks. And
the entire project. Okay.
The entire project. And if you would remember when Rosewood came through.
I wasn't on the board, so you don't even need to speak to me about that because I was on the board then.
Okay, because just like Rosewood, the sidewalks that were required and did obtain the waiver at the time was only along the public roadway, not the internal access.
Right, that's what I'm saying, Tim. I understand River Road, but I don't see the internal. the internal. So, but you're asking for relief of both.
No, I'm saying that just like Rosewood, there were no sidewalks internally except those that came from their private driveways to their front doors. This is identical to that. The only sidewalk that was shown on Rosewood was along Rosewood North, and that was the one that was asked for a waiver.
Okay, I understand that, but that was how many years ago versus now? And so things have changed since Rosewood. So just,
Sidewalk ordinance was in there because I had to ask for a waiver.
okay, the other comment that I have is concerning, I understand about the issue about the flood and so forth, but realizing that as an individual who lives on the river, the banks sometimes get a little leery about giving an individual a mortgage if you're on the floodplain, which would then require flood insurance. So just so that you know, from me as a person who might want to buy there, if you're on a floodplain, my bank may not approve a mortgage unless I do flood insurance. Just FYI.
Yep, no, and we've already gone through that. And that is why we did the design of the foundation walls with the flood vents. It will still be technically within a floodplain, but because of the flood vents and the proper square footage of flow that can go through that area, your insurance, where it might have cost several $1,000s, will only cost a couple $100.
Okay.
So they will have to have flood insurance, but the amount of flood insurance and the cost of it is dramatically decreased. It's
Okay.
10 to 15% of what it normally would be.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
Yep.
you.
Other questions from people?
Is my hand down, Phil, or is my hand still up?
It's down.
Okay.
Nobody has their hands up right now.
Well, if there's no other comments, I'd like to make a motion to approve with conditions. PSPR 20-02 site plan application from 4 Hacks LLC for a duplex condominium development on a private road at 3905 East River Road, parcel number 1408700200202 in the R2A district, finding that it can comply with applicable zoning ordinance requirements, including section 12.4, standards for review, subject to the following conditions. Copies of outside agency permits or approvals from the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy EGLE, Isabella County Drain Office, Isabella County Road Commission, and the Township Public Services Department for Municipal Utilities are submitted to the zoning administrator prior to issuance of building permits. Exterior lighting details shall be submitted as part of the building permit plans for zoning administrator review and approval, and as recorded copy of the amended final plat as approved by the state of Michigan shall be submitted to the zoning administrator prior to issuance of any certificate of occupancy for the project.
May I make a suggestion of adding a fourth condition in regards to the sidewalks? That there will be a temporary relief of sidewalks along River Road and the internal development.
Yeah, I believe that's already in the application, so I don't feel that would need to be noted. Is that correct, Rodney?
That is correct. It is on the plan itself, the request for relief. So if you approve the site plan, you are also approving the request for relief as he's proposed.
Okay.
I'll support.
So the motion was made by LaBelle and the second was by Cody. Further discussion? If not, Buckley, Ryan?
I'm just curious. I want to make sure that, and maybe this is a dumb question, I want to make sure I'm in the right spot geographically here, where we're looking at this site. When we talk about this sidewalk relief on River Road, I understand the other parameters are met, but there was a death on River Road right next to the country club there 2 years ago of a cyclist. Is that not within the distance that we're talking about here of this site, or am I missing something here, or I guess I'm just kind of curious as to what anybody else knows about that, if I'm in the right location or if I'm not looking in the right location.
I don't think it meets it's less than the 50%. So even though there's a sidewalk up there, it's still less than 50%.
Right, but it says, and correct me if I'm wrong, it says in the policy that we created that if there has been a death within 1 mile in either direction, that a sidewalk is required.
I think there was a death. Was it right at the top of the hill? Just
The
beyond
53-year-old bicyclist was struck by a car, and it was right near the Mount Pleasant Country Club. That was on June 27, 2017. So unless I'm reading something wrong, I'm not sure that we are permitted to grant relief in this situation. And I could be reading it wrong. I don't know.
But was this a pedestrian death or a bicyclist using the roadway?
It was a bicyclist death.
Hit by a drunk driver, I believe. The cyclist was hit by a drunk driver, if I remember correctly.
Right. I don't know if that is a pedestrian or a cyclist.
Do we distinguish between the two? I don't know if we do.
Somebody's riding a pedal bike in the road.
Our policy in regards to what was written in regards to for granting relief talks about a car pedestrian,
okay,
where the pedestrian to walk in the roadway. Doesn't talk about anything about bicycle.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify.
No, and Commissioner Buckley brings up a good point, Commissioner Webster. When you guys came up with these factors, is that something, what was your intent? Was your intent to really just talk about pedestrians, or were you thinking cyclists in there, or not? Could you maybe expand on that?
It was, in regards to the definition of sidewalks, the sidewalk is for pedestrians. It's for bicycles. The sidewalk is not meant for bicycle. They are to be on the road. So then therefore, that's why we went with pedestrian, because this is a sidewalk.
Okay.
So that was the reasoning.
Thank you for that.
That was my only clarification. I have no more comments.
Any other discussion on the motion? Once again, the motion is to approve the site plan with stated conditions. Going once, going twice. If there's no further comments, then I'll ask Jennifer to call the roll, please.
Petrito,
Yes.
Webster,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
LaBelle,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Thering,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
and Cody.
Yes.
Carries 9-0.
Thank you. That motion was approved, so the site plan is approved.
Okay. I had one more thing, Phil, just so that everybody knows, the condominium portion of this will be coming to you shortly, which will be the master deed and the Exhibit B drawings. So we've gone through the site plan. Now the the actual drawings for the master deed will be coming in. So you'll be seeing it one more time.
That's the part where you're essentially undoing the historical platting and replatting it.
No, we've already done that. The amended plat has been recorded. Unfortunately, we're struggling getting a copy out of the Register of Deeds. They have not been microfilming. So we have a notice that it's been received, that it's in their system. We have an email from the state saying that it was approved, but we don't have a hard copy. No, this is the documents that actually allow you to sell one of the condominium units.
Oh, right.
So just letting you know that they will be coming soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, so then we'll move to our other business item, which is the zoning ordinance update. You have in your packet some amended text from some sections that people were interested in. And so I'll let, again, Rodney and/or Peter, if there's anything you'd like to say about this, and then we'll take questions from commissioners and go from there.
Right. I can just share a few thoughts. It starts on page 22 of the packet, and I included both the clean copy, which is basically page 22 and 23 of the packet, and then I included the markup version where the underlined text is new and strikeout text is deletions, just so you can see what was done. I'll actually start with the stormwater part, which is on page 23 of the clean version. The stormwater management section, there was a concern there about the low starting point. The point at 20 cubic yards of material would trigger a stormwater permit. That was actually not consistent with the township stormwater ordinance. So what we did is simply made this zoning ordinance consistent with our separate stormwater management ordinance, and just referenced that. So it was an easy change to make, eliminated the inconsistency, and so we set the zoning ordinance up simply to reference our existing stormwater ordinance requirements. For the grading permit, you'll see there on page 22 of the packet, section 7.18 grading regulations. Here, we did make some pretty significant alterations based on your discussion and direction from last time. One of the key changes is item A2, scope of application. And this was done to clarify when a grading permit is required and when it's not. And we essentially added A through F there. Or these are all exceptions. These are situations that don't require grading permit. They may require some other approval under the ordinance, but they don't require a separate grading permit. You'll see item A is instead of 20 cubic yards, we upped it to 50 cubic yards in a single instance and 100 cubic yards total in a calendar year. So that's if they're moving small amounts of material, relatively small amounts of material, they can do that without a grading permit. And you'll see the other requirements. They're related to agricultural operations and nurseries, tree removal, gardening, and other elements that where incidental earth movement will take place, but there's no grading permit required. We also we updated and kind of streamlined the language, tying the grading permit to site plan review. So projects that are coming due for site plan review, the grading will be taken care of that way, and also made a few tweaks to the grading standards, not altering them, but to kind of clean up the language a little bit while we were working on it. Then a corresponding change was made under the section 14 administrative procedures to eliminate that 20 cubic yard item and simply reference section 7.18 standards. So these changes were made, as I said, to in response to your direction from our previous meeting. If you're comfortable with these, obviously we can make any changes you'd like to these. If you're comfortable with these, what we would do is simply incorporate this in with the public hearing materials. That would, if you set a public hearing, we would simply have this referenced as well, and have it also referenced on the on the website so people can read it in addition to reading the ordinance book.
Okay. Comments or questions on this from commissioners?
I appreciate all the work you guys have done on this, because trying to tie one item back to another item, well, it's got to be tough at times, especially with all the details and all the pages. So thanks for your work, Rodney and Peter.
Welcome.
I'm waiting to see what the reaction is from our Minister of Dirt. Does this meet with your approval?
Yes, I'm fine with this.
Okay.
It turned out really well.
All right, good. I have a question. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Who started to speak? Go ahead.
It was Ryan. I just have kind of a very specific question, and it's more for my own edification than anything else, because I'm trying to understand, as just circumstance would have it, and obviously, Phil, we're in the same subdivision together, but one of the neighbors was asking about, when we've been talking about a roadway and stuff, and one of the neighbors was asking about drainage, and had asked me a question about whether or not they could put tile in their yard to assist with runoff, and obviously because we live near the river and we get flooded. And I said, oh, well, we're talking about that. And so I was reading this tonight. I was looking at it today, and I was trying to determine whether or not I thought that neighbor needed to get a permit to put some drainage tile in their backyard. And I couldn't quite tell, based on what I'm reading here, if that's the case or not. And I said, well, you know what? I'll ask the question and see. So it's a very specific kind of detail, but I'm just kind of curious if anybody has any thoughts on that.
I guess one comment on it, if I may. Just
Sure.
Just a thought. Typically, with residential drainage, the goal is actually not to drain it quickly. The problem with underground drain tile is it drains far more swiftly. That but that puts the water into the public drainage system, whether it's roadside ditches or storm water, storm drains or other features, far more swiftly during a big rain event, and so it adds to the pressure on those features, and can add to flooding, add to erosion. So the short answer is I strongly recommend against tile.
Okay.
No matter what the circumstance on a residential lot. Obviously, there are some farm properties where they've been tiled, and under the Right to Farm Act, they have the ability to do that. But for residential property, you're essentially putting your problem, your water, onto your neighbor when you if you were to tile it, because the downstream
Sure.
neighbor simply have more water more swiftly.
Sure. Okay. That makes sense.
I actually wanted to, I want to follow up on that. So the change in terms of the stormwater on here, I understand in terms of the ordinance, I understand what you're doing in terms of referring it to the township's stormwater management ordinance. I'm on the township's website. I wanted to look at the stormwater management ordinance, but I don't know where it would be.
You can find it on the what's called the Municode site. From the main township website, on the right-hand side, it says community information.
Yeah.
That down menu, one of the choices is codes, and that will take you to the Municode site where the stormwater management ordinance is posted.
You mean like municipal codes?
Yeah, the Municipal Code Corporation. I'm sorry, Municode. I apologize. Nick The Municipal Code Corporation is a company that essentially hosts township ordinances or city ordinances. Various communities have them posted on that. Going back to the days before many communities had their own website, they would use this website to have their ordinances available to for anybody to view, and so it is on that site.
Okay, I got you.
And
I got you.
Yeah.
So then, I guess the question I would have then is, the language that was struck from page 25 of our packet, section 8.3, is there anything in there that is more restrictive or elaborates on or is additional to the ordinance that's worth keeping?
On page 25 of your packet, section 8.3A, the language that was struck there is taken from the purpose statement in the stormwater management ordinance. It's not different from it, but it's really not necessary for our purpose to have that in there.
Yeah.
B was the problem.
Right.
Yeah. B, the regulated activities are differences. The 20 cubic yard requirement is not in our stormwater management ordinance.
Right.
The stormwater management ordinance uses a different method. That was the key, but several of these items are not in the stormwater management ordinance. So to avoid conflicts, to avoid conflicts between the two ordinances, it's really best to simply allow the stormwater management ordinance to govern, and then we reference it here. At some point, we may want to take a look at the stormwater management ordinance. It is a good ordinance, but there may be a benefit to looking at it and considering whether it does need to be updated. But that can be done separately as a separate project.
Okay. Other questions?
Hey, Rodney, just to go back to Commissioner Buckley's question. So would that person, sounds like it's advised against, but is that person allowed to, does they have to come and get a permit, or can they go ahead and do that if they choose?
That's a good question. I don't know, Peter, do you have any thoughts on that? Well, actually, you're muted. Hang on. There we go. Okay.
Does the question on getting a permit if you're doing for just a stormwater management?
This
No,
is for
Commissioner Buckley spoke about doing some drain tile in your backyard to move the water maybe away from the house or away from a certain area.
I don't know if we've ever gotten a permit for that I've seen.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to look at that issue. Right offhand, I don't know the answer to it. I think we're heading into the intersection of the building code and other township ordinances. So we can certainly find out for you and get you an answer back.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner LaBelle, for bringing that back up. The only other add-on to that I would say is, and I don't know if it's any different, if say, for instance, a homeowner wanted to add, not necessarily tile, but add, I mean, obviously, if they're pumping from a sump pump into an existing septic bed or pumping into an established ditch, which is where the drainage is supposed to go anyway, if they're creating something underground, even if it's not tile, if it's just a straight pipe from the house on a sump pump, I guess that's a similar question. As a homeowner, if they're trying to mitigate water around their foundation, is a permit needed to do that?
We'll find out the answer for you on that.
Thank you.
As I said, we're really in the intersection with the building code, and that's
Sure.
not an answer I can give right offhand. But we'll look at.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Great.
Would a drain field fall under the classification of a private utility?
You mean your septic system or drain field?
Yeah, because I know a lot of these newer drain fields built nowadays are way in excess of 50 yards.
Anything related to that, the construction of the dwelling, that's handled through the building permit process and through the county health department process.
Right.
That would not require drain permit from us. I certainly don't mind adding. In fact, I thought there was something about septic.
Well, they're private utilities.
Yeah.
Would a drain field fall under the private utilities in C?
We can simply add it. I don't mind at all calling it out. Yeah.
If we just added it.
Yep.
For what it's worth, my questions have been answered, and with Commissioner Fuller's blessing, I'm comfortable with the changes that have been proposed.
And I agree with you, Ryan. The 50 cubic yards is a unit of measure. 50 cubic yards down on Pickard is a lot different than 50 cubic yards on a 2.5 acre site or these larger parcels that are built out rurally. I don't know how to encompass that all, but I guess this is a great start. We'll find out how much kickback there is.
I actually did look at that issue of lot size, and I could not come up with a workable solution.
Pretty tough.
And so I simply looked at some other communities and talked to some folks that have been using standards in other communities, and this 50-100 framework here seems to be a fairly common one, and was with at least with the place I talked to, relatively few complaints.
Right.
The numbers seem to work pretty well.
So do we want to discuss the setting of a public hearing date?
Are we going to get a revised draft of the entire ordinance?
The intent. Yeah, the intent is to take the draft that you have out for the public hearing with the addition of this change. The reason for that is that we already have this version out for review. It's been out for review for quite some time for the public, and so we don't want to be swapping and try to make sure trying to have people figure out which one is which. So it would be this draft with the addition of the language that we gave you. That would be the intent, to take that out for a hearing. Obviously, you can make any changes you wish as part of your recommendation to the board. As we talked about, we've invited other comments. We do have a few typo type things to take care of that we would incorporate into any motion that you might make in a recommendation. It would be preferable if we could to take this March 5th draft out for the public hearing.
Are what you gave us in the packet tonight are the only substantive changes to that?
That's correct. Yeah. So far, obviously, if there's anything else that you have a concern about, we certainly can address it before the hearing. But what
Right.
you have in the packet is right at this point would be the only addition to it.
Okay. Well, I know we talked about this before, but maybe Rodney, remind us again, like time frame we're talking about here.
Well, we have, as we've talked about, we have the open house scheduled for June 30th. The public press release has gone out. We have the Chamber of Commerce helping us out with getting notice information out as well to the business community. Essentially, in terms of the hearing process, we could have a hearing as early as your July meeting, and if you chose to, you could. One of the challenges we have with July is we don't know yet how that meeting will take place, because we have right now this Zoom electronic meeting format authorization just till the end of this month. So I think if you're inclined to authorize a hearing, I would ask you to perhaps authorize it for July or August, depending on availability of our ability to hold a hearing. And we will simply work with whatever the governor does or does not do with regards to the available format. I do know that there is a desire to have an in-person meeting, and I respect that. And, so if we can do that and do it safely, we certainly would. The staff has been working on looking at the boardroom and figuring out how we can have the public in and maintain social distancing, and that process is ongoing. As I said, the hearing can be held as early as your regular July meeting if you chose to authorize that.
What do people think? I mean, in general, I mean, I'm inclined to want to move forward with this. I mean, we've been at it a while, and we need to know at some point whether we're going to draw public comments or not.
I would like to think that we could move on quickly, and I'm realizing that our facility at the Township Hall may not be large enough for social distancing, but could it be, we've held other meetings at other places, Commission on Aging, maybe there's some other venue that would be able to then hold the appropriate numbers that you might think that might be there, as well as respect social distancing. Is that possible?
It will certainly be looking at that. Unfortunately, the Commission on Aging is more restricted than we are right now, obviously because of their target market has the most significant concern about the COVID-19 virus. So we're not able at the moment to hold any meetings there. I don't know if that would change before July, but that facility would be excellent if we could use it. But we will be.
Are there other facilities that we could use? I mean, I understand about the Commission on Aging. I just brought that up because of the size, but yeah, there are other large facilities in this area that, I mean, would it have to be in Union Township? Could it be at the university, or, I don't, other places that might be available?
On an outdoor pavilion?
I was just thinking about that. Yes, we do have the benefit that it's light well into the evening. So
outdoor,
we can hold a hearing outside. We do have the challenge of having a public address system and being able to accommodate folks that may need accommodations in some way to support their being able to attend. But we'll certainly look at that. My thought would be, as I said, is if you do authorize a hearing, we simply note it either for July or August, and staff will be continue to work on how best to do that in a safe way and in the best location possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly in support of July 21st if we can get it then. But again, like you said, if we don't know what we're going to be able to do until July 1, that makes it tough to kind of logistically plan for that. So.
Do we need a motion for this, or is this really just a discussion item at this point?
I would suggest, if you're comfortable, to make a motion simply as part of moving this project forward. I think it would be a good step to have it in the minutes that you've agreed that with these adjustments that the document is ready for a public hearing.
So I would entertain a motion to to move to a public hearing either in July or August. Someone is so moved.
I'll, so moved. That I'll make a motion that we move to the public hearing for the update of the zoning ordinance with the desire to do the July 21st meeting. However, if we are not able to comply with the appropriate safeguards for COVID, that we look to give August. Would that be appropriate, Rodney?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Support?
So the motion was by Webster. The support was that Cody?
Yeah.
Okay. Support is by Cody. Further discussion?
Do we have, is it Jameson Park or Jameson Hall? Isn't that a fairly good size?
I believe that will be under construction at the time.
Oh,
Yeah, we had a meeting there when the Township Hall was under construction, at least one, maybe even more. I don't remember. This was several years ago. The last time there was significant construction in the Township Hall, we had a meeting out there. It's not huge, but it's bigger than what we normally meet in. So I guess I'll ask Jennifer to call the roll.
Cody,
Yes.
Squatrito,
Yes.
Webster,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Faring,
yes.
LaBelle,
Yes.
and we lost Shingles about 8 p.m., so it's 8-0.
Okay, thank you. That motion carried. So that'll go forward and we'll hope for the best on that in terms of scheduling. Anything else on the zoning ordinance at this time? Anyone has? If not, then we'll move to extended public comment. So this is the portion of the meeting where anyone is invited to address the Planning Commission on any item, whether it was on tonight's agenda or not. If you want to do so, hit the raise hand button. We'll recognize you. We'll ask you to give us your name and address for the minutes and limit your comments to 5 minutes. Extended public comment is open at 8:17.
Don't have a hands thing on my screen. It didn't pop up.
No, and I didn't, I was looking under attendees. I didn't realize you were still on our side, but yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick question. What is the appropriate way, if we have questions in regards to the new zoning ordinance, to turn them in? What's the appropriate way that you want that done?
I can answer that. There are a couple of options. You're welcome to email myself and Peter. But the ordinance is posted. There's a link on the Township website. It's a separate website where the consultant McKenna Associates has hosted that, and on that website they have an online comment form. So you also can go on there and comment through that, and the intent is that the consultant is going to address those as part of the open house, and then provide all those comments back to the Planning Commission. So you're welcome to do both if you'd like.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That was it.
No, thank you. Yeah, we'll look forward to your comments for sure. Other public comments at this time? If not, then we'll thank the public for their comments. We'll go ahead and close the extended public comment at 8:19. Final board comment. Any comments from board members? Hearing none, then we've completed our agenda, so we'll stand in adjournment until our July meeting on the 21st. Oh, actually, probably until the open house on the 30th. What time is that again?
That's at 7 o'clock.
Is that also going to be a Zoom meeting?
It will be a Zoom meeting. It is not an official Planning Commission meeting. There'll be a posting, in case we have a quorum there. So we'll be posting at the hall, but it's simply a meeting hosted by the consultant for anyone who would like to attend. But you're certainly welcome. And yes, it's a Zoom meeting. We'll send you out the notice for that, and it will also be on the township website.
Okay, so yeah, attend that if you can, and then otherwise we'll see everyone on July 21st. Meeting adjourned.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Night.
Night.
Good night.